How's it going? Oh, it's all right. It's all right. Morning. I've got a problem I'm dealing with right now. You know, I drive on the campus, make the turn up there, and if you're watching online, you may not know this. There's a sign there that says Duck Donuts drive-through. Anybody seen that sign? Anybody seen that sign? There's one right behind it too. And I've looked. I can't find it. I've looked around. There's signs all over the place. I cannot find that thing at all. I'm playing Duck, Duck, Goose with some donuts right now, okay? And so, you like that one, good. And so of course, this because, you know, during our staff meetings, it's all about the important conversations. So that came up, and that brought us into the conversation of what is the best donut. You know, what's the best kind? Do you like the cake donuts? You like the, you know, the Krispy Kreme kind of donuts? Do you like cream filled? Do you like... If anybody had thought ahead and was doing a donut fundraiser this morning, I'm helping them out. But so, you know, everybody's got the, matter of fact, it was at the gym of all places. Somebody brought in some donut holes, and now they've got donut holes with filling. It's like, oh my gosh, just kill me now, all right? But one of the things that I realized during this conversation as we're having it about what kind of donut do you like, what's your favorite, what kind, all these conversations is, if you have a favorite donut, favorite type of donut, favorite specific donut, if you can participate in the conversation about what's the best kind of donut, when it comes right down to it, in the worldwide stage, you are one of the haves, not the have-nots. Right? You know, we talk about a lot about how do you figure out whether or not how you fit in. If you can have an intelligent conversation about types of donuts, I think that's a safe way to say you're one of the haves. Right? I think, don't worry about how much money. If you can have that conversation, you're in the haves. And now everybody in the room went from happy thinking about donuts to, oh crap, it's been one of those. Right? Because everybody's going, oh no, now come the guilt trip. To spend we got here for Guilt Trip Sunday, where he's going to talk about how we're not giving enough money or helping enough people or doing enough things and all that stuff. And the reality is I think we think about that concept wrong, because as soon as I say I'm one of the haves, do you have trouble saying that? Do you have trouble saying that out loud? I have trouble articulating to you that I'm a have as opposed to one of the have-not. I mean, there are almost 7 billion people on earth, and if you put them in a scale of who makes the most, who has the most stuff, to who's in the bottom, I'm in the top, I don't know where exactly, but I'm way up there. But I have trouble saying it. Anybody else, you have trouble even admitting that reality. But the fact is that if you're in this room, I am almost 100% certain that you're in the haves. You're in the top part. Let me give you another way you can know that. What's for lunch? You haven't decided yet, have you? Because you've got options. Now, it varies from person to person throughout the room. Some of you have a lot. We might well have somebody in this room who, if you wanted to, you could go to Fayetteville or to Raleigh or to Cary, and you could go to one of those $100 steakhouses for lunch today, and it would not be a problem for you. There are quite possibly 1 or 2 people in this room, and if they want to take me along, I'm okay with that. Okay? And there are probably some people in this room where in your current status, you're going to go home and you're going to eat at home, because that's the conscientious thing to do. But even there, you're going to have choices. You're going to go in and you're going to say, I would like this, or I want this, I want spaghetti, I want, you know, there's just lots of options. And when it comes right down to it, having things, what that really means is having, that's the wrong thing. That's supposed to say options. Can we fix that for next service? I got it. Okay. Having things means having options. That's not a slide, but you should write it down anyway. It's not in your blanks, but just go ahead and practice for your blanks. Write that down. Having things means having options. That's what it means. That's what happens when you have stuff, is you have options. And if you think about it, there are lots of people on earth who do not have options. You know, what's for lunch? Is it a lunch? Or there is a thing that is for lunch, because that's what lunch is. Lunch is rice and beans. Lunch is this, or a very, very narrow set of options. And those of us who are in the haves, just go ahead and dig that into yourself. Go ahead and just say it to yourself out loud. I'm among the haves. Okay, because I'm not going to make you feel guilty about it. I'm not going to tell you it's a terrible thing, because options bring opportunities. Okay? Having things means having options, and options bring opportunities. And here's the really why I want you to really be able to say this positively. If you have opportunities and options, it's because, are you ready for this? It's because God believes you can handle them. Okay? God doesn't go about giving things out to people he knows can't handle them. Now, you may look at yourself and say, I'm not handling them very well. Irrelevant. Completely irrelevant. God gave Samson, if you know this Bible story, strength. Now, sometimes Samson handled it well. Often he handled it poorly. But Samson had the ability to harness the options that he had, the opportunities that he had, the abilities that he had to do amazing good things. And sometimes he did that. And I think we make a mistake when we deny that God has, most of us, how do we talk about it? How you doing financially? Oh, I'm struggling. I got problems. We don't want to admit that we're among the haves because we either feel guilty about it or we think it's something bad. In reality, it's God saying to you, wherever you are on this haves set, I have faith that you can take advantage of the opportunities I'm putting before you. And what we do is we deny that we have the options, we deny the opportunities, we deny that we're among the haves, and then we don't take advantage of the opportunities that God wants us to take advantage of. Does that make sense? So I do not want you feeling guilty because you got stuff. Okay? But we do want to talk about how we utilize what we have. Do you understand where we're going? See where we're going? I'm going to do my best not to make you have a guilt trip today over something that really, don't worry if you're brand new. I am not a prosperity kind of guy. Okay, you can trust me on that. But I don't want you to feel the guilt. I want you to say, these are the opportunities, these are the chances. And really to be honest about it, I don't think I chose to be among the haves. Just life circumstances, the way that my natural ethics are, the way that I was raised, what my parents fed into me as far as giving me a good head start, all that kind of thing, that led me to here. I didn't say, I want to be among the haves. I never said that. I never worked at that. I just worked. That old work ethic in a right country where work ethics are rewarded, and you find yourself in the haves. You didn't do anything. Most of you, some of you might have, I don't know. Most of you didn't do anything wrong to get here. You were basically, the old saying is, you were born on third base. And most of us are born on third base. And we just acknowledge that's who you are, that's where you are. And by the way, that's true no matter where you are on the donut scale, where you are on what you're having for lunch scale. Okay? You're in the haves. God allowed you to be here. You didn't say, most of us didn't set up say, I'm going to be that. You are there now, though. And with being there come opportunities and options. And opportunities to do really good things. Okay? Does that make sense? Ready? You did not expect that, did you? Okay, so what we're doing is, today's message is called My Stuff. We're in the book of James. We're going to end up in James chapter 5, if you want to turn in or turn on there. But like we've done every time with this passage, we're going to start in James 1, because James 1 is the table of contents for the book of James. And I want to give you the introduction to that first. So James 1 says this, because this is just a freak out passage. Believers who are poor have something to boast about, for God has honored them. And those who are rich should boast that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a little flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers, the little flower droops and falls, and its beauty fades away. In the same way, the rich will fade away with all of their achievements. And what he's doing with this passage, basically he's saying, you need to understand something about your stuff. It's all temporary. Everything that you have as a physical possession is temporary. Or it's because we decided it has value. You ever realize that? Almost everything that you have, there is possibility that we could decide it doesn't have value anymore. You know, diamonds are like the most propped up industry in the world. That if they just cut loose everything, diamonds will be worthless. But they tightly control the supply in such a way that it keeps the prices high, and they keep telling us they're valuable because they're pretty and everything. And we keep believing them. We think gold is valuable. Gold's valuable because we describe it and say it has value. If they were to find an asteroid that was really, really big and was made of pure gold, and they brought it to Earth, the price of gold would go because it would become common. So it all just comes and goes. It's just what we decide. It's just what we feel. And that's what he's saying. All of this stuff that you put your faith in, it's all just a decision we made. It doesn't have real value. Okay? So he's flipping your around your head. And it points us to James chapter 6. Let's go ahead and move over there. Because here, James goes into prophet mode. It's going to sound like an Old Testament prophet, and I like it because I like prophets. He says, look here, you rich people, and let's just stop for a second. He is talking potentially to us. Okay? Let's just quit the pretending. He's talking to us. Almost everybody in this room, he's talking to us. Okay? In reality. With the options we have, the opportunities we have, he's talking to us. Listen, look here, you rich people. Weep and groan with anguish. Well, he's potentially talking to us. Weep and groan with anguish because of the terrible troubles ahead of you. Your wealth is rotting away, and your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. Your gold and silver have become worthless. The very wealth you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. This treasure you have accumulated will stand as evidence against you on the day of judgment. For listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. The wages you held back cry out against you. The cries of those who harvest your fields have reached the ears of the Lord of the harvest, of heaven's armies, I mean. You have spent your years on earth in luxury, satisfying your every desire. You have fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. You have condemned and killed innocent people who do not resist you. Okay, that's heavy. And you don't want to be in that category. But this is a really, 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 really weird passage. Because most of the time, when you're looking at the Bible, what you want to hear is, what did the original hearers hear? Okay, you want to try to get into their skins. But recognize, the people James is writing to, the ones he's speaking to, were poor people being oppressed by rich people. So we're like, here it is. Here's James, and James is talking to rich people who are kind of not there. Okay? He's yelling at them for the benefit of the poor people who are standing here listening. That make sense? You ever done that? You ever done it with a kid? Where you're talking to somebody else so the kid will listen? You know, yeah, my wife does that. My wife, she's a kindergarten teacher. She can't help it. She does it to me. She does it every other time. It's I like how Timmy is making his desk neat. And she's not talking to Timmy at all, right? She's talking to Tammy, who's got the messiest desk in the room. If you're a parent, you don't know that trick. You need to pick that one up. Now, Kim's only problem is she doesn't realize that I've figured that trick out. Like 2 or 3 weeks ago, I figured it out now. It doesn't work. Doesn't work on me. She can't talk about somebody else, and she's saying, "Oh, I like how Barry keeps his office neat." And she can't. Doesn't work. It doesn't work on me anymore. I've worked my way through it. Well, we are in this position. We are sort of outside of an outside situation. So I've got James. He's speaking to these hypothetical rich people, so that his poor people can hear it and learn that God's on their side. But we're in a weird spot, aren't we? Because we're not the poor people. And from the way he describes it, I don't want to be those rich people. Right? Are you following this? He's presenting an option I don't want, but I don't fit in the poor group. I am among, the way that those people would have analyzed it, if they saw what I had, they would have all said, yeah, you're one of them. So today, we're going to be looking at this, and we're going to be asking ourselves some questions. Because, again, we are the haves. Just say it, own it, admit it. Don't pretend it's something else. Grab hold of it. This is where God has placed me. It wasn't a mistake. It wasn't an accident. God placed me there because the options and opportunities that come with it are options and opportunities He believes I can take advantage of for positive. They can take advantage of me if I'm not careful, but I have the potential, I have the ability to utilize this for good. Are you with me? You're kind of stunned, but you're with me, right? All right, okay. So, let's ask a couple of questions we have to ask ourselves. And the first question is this: what will I do with what I have? What will I do with what I have? That's what he said to those. He said, look here, we just read this. Look here, you rich people, weep and groan with anguish because of all the terribles ahead of you. Your wealth is rotting away. Your fine clothes are moth-eaten rags. Your gold and silver have become worthless. And we have to switch the way we think. I've already mentioned this a little bit. But all your stuff is going away. Did anybody here, let me lighten it up a touch. Lightning bugs. Anybody have lightning bugs growing up? Or some people call them fireflies. You have those? Did anybody ever do this? Did you go out and catch lightning bugs? And put them in a jar? And say, and what do you I was going to take them home because I wanted the world's greatest nightlight. Right? I'm going to catch the lightning bugs. I'm going to put them in a jar. I'm going to take them home. I'm going to put them in my bedroom, and I'll have the world's coolest nightlight, right? And what happened? Stupid thing up and died on me every time I tried it. I'd put holes in the lid. I'd put grass on the bottom. I did everything I could think of to make it so those silly lightning bugs could survive and thrive, forgetting lightning bugs are, A, not meant to live in jars, and B, very short-lived anyway. Okay, they don't grow, they don't get a pension. Okay, there is no Social Security for lightning bugs. They don't hang around long enough. They're bugs that don't live a long time. But I was thinking they have this value. I'm assigning them this value and saying this value is lightning bugs. So I'm going to go out and I'm going to catch the lightning bugs. Then I'm going to go wash the daylights out of my hand because lightning bugs make your hands stink like hardly anybody's business. And if you don't know that, you had a bad childhood. Okay? And I'm going to take these things that really don't have value to me the way that I see them, and I'm going to assign them this value, and then they're going to disappoint me. And what James is saying is, all these things that you are fighting to hoard, all these things that you are trying to gather for yourself, all of them go away. The old saying is, there's no such thing as a U-Haul attached to a hearse. You don't take any of it with you. None of it. Nada. Zip. Okay? And you spend your life, if you're not careful, hoarding all these things that James says, are going to rot. He even talks about, he says the gold is going to corrode. Well, one of the things we like about gold is it doesn't corrode. But he's putting the point out there and saying, you think this stuff's permanent. It's just temporary. Right now, you can go out and look at, I did something cool. I'm going to do something cool. I got a new stereo for my truck. Okay, because I'm ready to have a backup camera. I'm old enough, I can have that now. I figured out how I'm going to get it in there, but I'm going to do that. And I want my voice-activated thing on my radio so I can say, Alexa, play that, and it will. And I want Bluetooth. I want the phone to actually work well with my when it's doing. I want that. I've got a 2006 Honda Ridgeline with 239,000 miles, and I want to pretend like it's a little newer, right? So I'm going to get that in there. But like I said, I've got a 2006 Honda Ridgeline. I'm not buying a $1,000 stereo for it. Okay, I'm not buying a $1,000 stereo for anything ever, but I did buy a $200 stereo for a very old vehicle because I want it. You know what else I know? At least I hope. I hope that Honda's not my last vehicle. Because if your last vehicle's got 200 and almost 40,000 miles on it, you're close to seeing the end from there. And I'm hoping I get another one along the way. I know this thing is temporary. This car is not my end of my life. It's not the purpose of my life. It gets me from point A to point B in a comfortable way. I love it. It's paid for, which is my favorite option in cars. But it's temporary. Every car you've ever owned was temporary. Right? You went on the parking lot, you went on the dealer's parking lot and you picked it out, and it was the absolute greatest thing God had ever done in cars. Right? This is it. We have achieved perfection in the automobile industry with the car that I just drove off the lot. And what is that scratch on it? And it immediately begins the descent to selling, right? As soon as you bring it home, the stuff starts. As soon as you get it, it starts losing value in your mind and in the world's mind. I will say this about my 2006 Honda Ridgeline pickup truck with 230,000 miles on it, almost 240. A guy walked up to me Tuesday, asked if it was for sale. I said, no, it's not. But it's temporary. Everything I have is temporary. We've lived in the same house, for the most part, for 14 years. Do you have any idea what that house needs now? What needs done in that house? I don't even want to, you guys can't come over anymore. I'm not letting anybody in my house for a while. Matter of fact, I'm just going to sell it to my son-in-law and move. I'm just going to go. Because the house is doing this. The car is doing this. This is doing this. Right? All this stuff is going to rot. Okay? So one option is to store it up to rot. That's your first option with stuff. Do I want to store it up so I can watch it rot? Pretend it's not. Jesus put it a couple times similarly. He said, don't lay up for yourselves treasures on earth where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven where neither moth nor rust destroy and where thieves do not break in and steal. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. And I like to point to this verse. This is a huge verse. Where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. That is not a promise. That is a statement of fact. Okay? It's not, if you do this, then this. No, this is how the world works 100% of the time. Where your treasure is, that's where your heart is. Wherever you're investing your time and your money and your stuff, that's where your heart's at. How many of you have something that 5 years ago was a big part of your life and you invested a ton of time in it? Some when you were younger, or maybe you still do, you play sports, you're like really, really into some athletic endeavor. Or, okay, I'll help the other people out too. Or Dungeons and Dragons. Okay? And everybody else just stick around because they don't get this many illustrations. Just bear with us, okay? Let's say you're a dungeon master and you have spent hours and hours and hours and hours and hours creating your dungeon, and you're inviting people over to play and somebody ruins your dungeon. What's that feel like? No, seriously, what's that feel like? But when you invest time, when you invest money in something, it achieves value in your life. That's a given, guaranteed, no doubt about it thing. If you work on taking care of yourself and eating right and exercising, your body achieves more value for you. But whether or not you look much better or not, it only works, you can only do so much, you know what I'm saying? But there is more value you place on it. Wherever you put your time and your talents and your treasures, wherever you put those, that's where your heart goes. It's just a fact. And if you're putting your heart into making more money, your heart goes to the money, and what happens to the money? It goes away. You leave it behind. So that's what he's talking about here. Okay? He said it again in Luke to make sure we got it. Fear not, little flock, for it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom. God wants to give you his kingdom. Sell your possessions, give to the needy, provide yourselves with money bags that do not grow old, with treasure in the heavens that does not fail, where no thief approaches and no moth destroys, for there it is again. For where your treasure is, there your heart will be also. Okay? And so, now, there's something you need to make sure clear here. He's not talking about whether or not you're among the haves. That's not the comment here. The comment is, this condemnation is not for owning wealth per se, but for hoarding rather than using it for kingdom purposes. When stuff comes into your life, what are you doing with it? That's the point. God has given you options. God has given you opportunities. God has given you stuff. The question is, what happens to it when it comes to you? Are you hoarding it up like a jar of lightning bugs? Or are you utilizing it for value, which is the next option? You can store it up to let it rot, or you can invest it for permanent gain. In the book of Ecclesiastes, the author of Ecclesiastes does an experiment. He says, I amassed silver and gold for myself and the treasures of kings and provinces. I acquired male and female singers and a harem as well, the delights of a man's heart. I became greater by far than anyone in Jerusalem before me. In all this, my wisdom stayed with me. I denied myself nothing my eyes desired. I refused my heart no pleasure. My heart took delight in all my labor, and this was the reward for all my toil. So I worked hard. I made a lot of stuff. Yet when I surveyed all that my hands had done and what I had toiled to achieve, everything was meaningless, a chasing after the wind. And we get examples of this on a regular, weekly, daily basis. When somebody hits that super billionaires club, and what do they always do when they reach the certain top of the billionaires club? They start giving it away. Bill and Melinda Gates, what are they trying to do? Give it away. They're trying, well, not really to give it away. What are they trying to do? They're trying to invest it in things that matter because they realize there's not a point in your bank account when suddenly you go, oh, that feels good. That's bringing me the joy and satisfaction that I wanted. That's what I was looking for right there. It turned out I didn't need 6 billion, I needed 7. And when I got to 7, everything got good. Everything was... Somewhere along the way, 5, 6, 7 billion. They get up here somewhere and they realize, you know what? I'm a smart person. And there was no improvement from 6 billion to 7. Matter of fact, there was no improvement from 1 billion to 2. True fact. They did some surveys and stuff. 13% of millionaires, 13% of millionaires, just over 1 out of 10, consider themselves wealthy. Let that just sink for just a second. Just over 1 out of 10 millionaires consider themselves wealthy. And a lot of the ones who have 5 million do not consider themselves comfortable and well off. I can collect it and let it rot. And here's the bad part. As it rots me. That rot from that money that I am hoarding corrupts me. And you don't have to have millions for that to be happening. It's about attitude. It's about what am I thinking about this stuff. If my goal is to keep collecting it as hard as I can, just put all my energy into collecting it, it will rot and so will I. And it doesn't matter how much, it doesn't take billions for that to happen. In some cases, it takes hundreds for that to happen. If my goal is just to collect it, to say, if I get enough, I'll be secure. If I get enough, when it comes to the possessions gauge, there's no such thing as full. The meter doesn't go that high. So you keep striving, and it keeps empty, and you can either save it for it to rot, or you can invest it to gain. And how do you do that? Well, James has given us one of the key things. If we're going to invest it for gain, one of the key things is the other question. What will I say for those who are oppressed? That's the point of the whole thing in James, wasn't it? James is talking about people who are being oppressed. All right, let's go back and look at it, just so you remember. For listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you have cheated of their pay. The wages you held back cry out against you. The cries of those who harvest your fields have reached the ears of heaven's armies. Heaven's army is going to fight back at you. Earlier in his book, James had said this: pure and genuine religion in the sight of God the Father means caring for orphans and widows in their distress and refusing to let the world corrupt you. Hey, one more. Here's Isaiah. Learn to do right, seek justice, defend the oppressed, take up the cause of the fatherless, plead the case of the widow. Remember I told you right off the bat? When you have stuff, stuff brings options, and options give you opportunities to do things that matter. And I'm afraid what we do, and I fall into this, what we do is, I start out by denying that I'm a have. I start out by denying that I'm not in that category. It's not like I'm a millionaire, and if you're a millionaire, you're going, it's not like I'm a billionaire. If you're a billionaire, it's not like I'm Jeff Bezos. Right? Who gave away a chunk of his fortune because he decided to get divorced, right? And so we deny who we are, which means we're not in a position to do anything to help others because we don't believe we can. We think there's nothing we can do because we deny who we are. So I want to keep saying this. Tell yourself, I am among the haves. In this earth, worldwide, I am among the haves. Okay? I know some of you having trouble stomaching that. You don't want to say it, but I want you to hear it. I want you to keep thinking it. And, okay, I can't talk about that verse with talking about one area where we have an opportunity where we really need to be speaking up. I'm not going to do it hard. I'm just going to give you some logical stuff, okay? I'm not going to preach at you much. I'm just going to give you some facts, okay? And I'm starting with a thought experiment. And it's a stupid thought experiment. Right up front, this is stupid, okay? And if your parent tells you don't say stupid, don't be like me, okay? This is a stupid thought experiment. But let's say the United States decides to save some money by consolidating. You know how when companies are in trouble, they consolidate? You know, you cut off some branches, you'll move some things around. So the United States, you know, our debt, we're not even paying attention. Our debt is just climbing and climbing and climbing. And we decide we can save some money by consolidating, and what we'll do is we'll just eliminate a few states. Okay? We'll just take some of the states, and we'll just take all the people out of those states and move them somewhere else. Because, you know, it's just much more efficient. And if you're going to make it efficient, where you want to get those people out of is those highly inefficient states that don't have much population, right? Because these people are so far from each other. I mean, it costs us so much money to get them stuff. You know, get them their internet, get them their electricity. Why don't we're going to consolidate, and we'll just take people out of some of the states, and we'll move them to Texas. Texas has lots of room. There's already lots of people. People are moving in all the time down there for some reason. So we'll just take them, and we'll move all of them to Texas. Does that make sense? We're consolidating for efficiency. So we'll start with Wyoming, because they've got like 7 people in Wyoming. Is that right? It's like 7 people. We'll take the 7 people in Wyoming, and to keep it balanced, we'll take the whole state of Rhode Island, because my gosh, it's like this big. Nobody's going to notice. We'll take Wyoming and Rhode Island, move them to Texas, and then we'll keep going. We'll get Vermont and Montana, one east, one west. Okay? We'll take Alaska. Of course, Alaska, we've got to find all the people, but there's not that many of them, right? And it's cold, and it costs us lots of money to heat them and stuff. So let's just get those out of there. Maine, my gosh, why is anybody in Maine? It's way too cold. Of course, North Dakota, New Hampshire, South Dakota, Hawaii. We'll leave a few people to handle the tourist stuff because it's way too expensive. Have you seen Hawaii, how much it costs to live there? It's crazy. We got to get those people out. Well, just enough to run the tourist industries. So if I want to take my wife to Hawaii, I can do it. And then we'll finish up, and why not Delaware and District of Columbia is not a state, but that'll help with it. It's just too crowded there anyway. Let's get everybody out. We're going to take everybody here and move them to Texas. Now, what problems do you see with this? Yeah, Texas. Yeah, well, we may move the Texans somewhere too. I'll tell you the problem. It's impossible, right? I don't know if you're doing the math in your head. This is 11.5 million people. How do you move 11.5 million people? There really is. You don't move 11.5 million people. It's physically impossible to move 11.5 million people anywhere. You just can't do it. It's not possible. Okay, here's the point. We're talking about illegal and undocumented immigrants. We talked about the laborers who are picking your food. 11 million people. The combined population of the least populated states plus the District of Columbia. I did a message where I was much more fiery. I'm not really fiery today. I'm just going to talk about facts. And somebody who I hope they were joking, came up to me and had said, what should we do with the illegal, undocumented aliens? They said, we should deport them. Oh, yeah, because it's easy to move 11 million people. It's easy to say, we'll take 11.5 million people and we'll move, no, not to Texas. We got to take them to Colombia. We got to take them to Guatemala. We got to take them to the Middle East. We got to take them to 11.5 million people. It's not physically, as in physically possible. It's not physically possible, as in financially. The cost would bankrupt our country to even think about moving 11.5 million people anywhere. Across the street would bankrupt us. Okay? Okay, this is going to be pure facts. Not only is it impossible, it would kill us. Well, not kill us. It would just break us. Okay? In 2011, Georgia decided to crack down on undocumented workers. This is facts. I'm not giving anything but facts. Okay? They decided they were going to crack down. They're going to make it hard to be an undocumented person in Georgia. The result, the farmers lost over almost $75 million in unpicked crops harvested by hand. This is from the report, last spring and summer, because they didn't have enough labor. They lacked 40% of the total workforce they needed, which means 40% of their workforce at least is illegal and undocumented in the state of Georgia. Now, here's the funny part of it. This is sad, but what's funny about it is Alabama thought that was a great idea. They tried it the exact next year and got the exact same results. That was 2011 and 2012. Guess who's tried it since? Nobody. Okay? Then, now this is one of my favorites. The National Milk Producers, whatever, the consolidation of all milk farmers and producers in this country have an organization, because doesn't everybody? And they decided what would happen if we got rid of all the illegals and all the immigrants. What would happen to the milk industry? So they called Texas A&M, University in Texas, of course, and said, would you figure that out for us? So Texas A&M spends lots of time and lots of money figuring it out. And they said, well, half of all the workers on U.S. dairy farms are immigrants. The damage from losing those workers would extend far beyond the farms, nearly doubling the retail milk prices, costing the total U.S. economy more than $32 billion, according to the new report from the National Milk Producers Federation, which was done by Texas A&M. They said this: eliminating immigrant labor would reduce the U.S. dairy herd by 2.1 million cows, which means we would kill 2.1 million cows, okay? Which means the price of hamburger might drop briefly, but the quality would go way down. That was a joke. Milk production would go by 48.4 billion pounds. You don't care about that. The number of farms, by 7,000 farms would go out of business, and the milk prices would basically double. So, I'm just laying this out there for you, facts. There are roughly 11.5 illegal or undocumented immigrants in America. You can't physically move them. You can't physically move them, and it would ruin our economy if we tried. Listen, hear the cries of the field workers whom you've cheated of their pay. See, that's the reason they're illegal, because we don't want to pay them. Okay? The wages you held back crowd against you. The cries of those who harvest your fields have reached the ears of the Lord of heaven's armies. So we're supposed to take care of people. Now, so what do you do? Okay? Everybody says, oh, how about I throw some more, just a couple more facts? Because, I'll tell you this in just a second. Among those people, 66%, basically two-thirds, have been in the U.S. for at least a decade. Okay? Some of you are getting shocked. 8 of the 11 are employed. They have jobs. 3 million, I'm betting most of those are kids, wouldn't you? Or maybe there might be a handful of stay-at-home moms in there. Okay? And here's the fun one. The IRS estimates that undocumented immigrants pay over $9 billion in withheld payroll taxes annually. With a B. $9 billion. You can get something, what's it called? It's a number you can acquire. It's really intended for, like, if a foreign dignitary comes and he brings his kid along and his kid wants to get a paper route, the government wants to get money from that paper route, so they want him to pay income tax. So they give his kid this number that he can use to pay taxes. Well, lots and lots of illegal undocumenteds have that number, and they paid $9 billion in taxes the IRS estimates every year $9 billion in taxes. By the way, that's not even close to enough to how much is actually paid, because there's another technique you can use to pay taxes. It's called making up a Social Security number. You ever done the math on this one? This is fun. You like math? I hope you like math. There are 350 million Americans. There are, do the math, 100 million potential Social Security numbers, give or take. If you just make one up, your chances are really good you don't hit anybody. You're dropping stuff in Wyoming. You're not going to hit anything but a cow. Okay? So people just make up Social Security numbers and pay taxes. That's what happens every once in a while. They accidentally hit somebody. You go, wait a second, my Social Security, somebody paid taxes for me this year. How'd that happen? Oh, they just accidentally pick your number, but usually you don't. So can I throw something out at you? Because here's an idea. It's just an idea. Somebody keeps challenging me. How do you fix it? How about we start with this? If you can prove to me that you have paid income tax for the past 5 years and you have a clean criminal record, not amnesty, you have paid taxes to my government for 5 years and you have a clean criminal record, here's your green card, come back next year, we'll let you apply for citizenship. That'll knock out, 20, 30% of the 11 billion. We got to start. Now, you're going, no, I want rid of them. You can't get rid of them. That's not an option. I mean, you've got a problem. You're putting a fence around something that's a monkey mess already. You can't fix it. So anyway, I just want to throw that out there. Because here's what's happening to you right now. How complicated was my solution? That's not complicated. You might say, I'd rather have 6 years. I don't care. Make it 10. Make it 4. I don't care. You notice, have you heard anybody from Washington, either side of the aisle, say anything vaguely resembling that out loud? No, because they keep you interested by keeping you mad, and the only way they keep you mad is by keep throwing gasoline on the fire, and they keep their power by taking advantage of the people who have none. And we are their enablers. I said I wasn't going to preach, I'm sorry. Okay? They keep their power by taking advantage of the people who have none. And James says in his book, in the Bible, that the voices of the people who are harvesting your fields and are being oppressed in the process are crying out to me, the God of heaven's armies. And it's interesting he used heaven's armies because that's the one he uses to kick butt. You want to bless America? Start acting like a country that's worthy of being blessed. It's not our only problem. We got plenty. That's one that we can use our voices to do something with. Does that make sense? I'm sorry you came to come for that. But once in a while, James brought it up. That was not my idea. James, I mean, he just described it. I'm not going anywhere but where James went. So blame him. Get to heaven, you can chew him out. By the way, if you want to see the data, it'll be on Stuff Steve Says sometime tomorrow. I'm starting to put up every week, try to put up sermon stuff with extra notes and things so you get some more information. So anyway, that was free. But remember, we started out with this. When you have stuff, you have options. And those options give you opportunities. And here's the bottom line. Those choices that we make have consequences. Here's how James put it. Did you guys get the blanks? Sorry. We got it? Okay. Your gold and silver have become worthless. The very wealth you were counting on will eat away your flesh like fire. This treasure you have accumulated will stand evidence against you on the day of judgment. You've spent your years on earth in luxury, satisfying your every desire. You've fattened yourselves for the day of slaughter. That's a scary image. You've fattened yourself for the day of slaughter. Here's Malachi puts it this way. At that time I will put you on trial. I am eager to witness against all sorcerers and adulterers and liars. Oh, that's good. I'm glad he's against all sorcerers and adulterers and liars. Let's keep going, though. I will speak against those who cheat employees of their wages, who oppress widows and orphans, or who deprive the foreigners living among you of justice. For these people do not fear me, says the Lord of heaven's armies. Again, I didn't write it. I'm just putting it out there. That we are among the haves. Being a have means you have options and opportunities. Okay? I'm not saying you have an option. No, we don't have the option, the opportunity to fix that many problems. We have the option to use our voice to do something. Does that make sense? But want to back it back a notch? Because one of the worst things you can do is to try to do everything. Or to take on something that's too big for you. But today, think about your options. Think about the things that come into your life. The things where you can make a decision that will help. That'll do some good. Look around, find them. Can I give you one? This is an easy one and a plug at the same time. Because we're doing a missions pancake breakfast on November 16th, where we're raising money to help people who have less. Specifically, I think it's kids in Cambodia who have less. That's not a big decision. That's not earth-changing, but it's a decision. Saying, I want to take some of the stuff that God gives me, and I'm going to do good things with it. A couple years ago, my wife and I decided, you know what, we're not doing enough. And this is not I'm not bragging for a major thing. This was just a step, a really little step. We said, you know what, we could take on, we were already doing a child with compassion. We said we could add, and we added like St. Jude's. We added 5 and 2 food pantry right around the corner here. I forget, there was a third one. We added 3 things. It came to right at $100 a month. We're halves. We can pull that off. We added $100 to our budget, picked all 3 things and things that we are making some difference. We're not changing the whole world, but we're using our options and our opportunities to accomplish, because our choices have consequences. And if all of us start recognizing that and are letting our choices mirror what we say are our values, we can make differences. We can do things that matter. We can come out on Saturday and get up early, for some of us. Spend hours decorating a car and watch the kids walk through. And sure, some of them a lot of them are haves, but there's a few you can catch that are have-nots. You can see some kids that costume wasn't purchased somewhere. So I want to help that kid. We were talking with some school teachers in the area who reach out to teach some of the kids who have the least head start, the least ability to really get going. And working with them, we came up with this idea of, because a lot of kids get to kindergarten, they don't even know how to handle kindergarten. They're not ready. They don't know how to stand in a line. They don't know how to go to the bathroom on their own, apart from their home. They don't know how to function. And I don't know where the idea came out of. I don't know who said it. It was a great idea. You know, if you guys would do a pre-kindergarten camp during the summer, just bring the kids here. Show them how to sit on a mat, how to stand in line, how to be in a crowd, how to be with a group, how to take turns, how to stand in line. Maybe talk about their alphabet a little bit, because that would be really cool if they knew some of their letters and sounds before they got to kindergarten. That'll take that kid and that'll slide that kid down the road. That'll give them a kickstart for their life, just a little one, just a little nudge. Some of them, that's all they need, is a nudge. Wow. We have stuff, buildings and ground, that gives us options. And those options create opportunities. And what are we going to do with those opportunities? See how it works? What do I have that I can use to help others? And remember how we started this. I don't want you to see this as a guilt trip, because that's not what it's supposed to be. What this is an acknowledgement that God believes in you. It's an acknowledgement that God believes in you enough to entrust you with the options and the opportunities. I don't want you to go feel like, oh, I'm such a terrible person. No, we're all terrible people. We're all screwed up. We're all fallen creatures who do wrong things and make selfish choices all the time. But I can make some good choices. God believes I can. God entrusted me with the stuff so I could make some good choices. And I'm not going to change the world, but I can nudge it. Everything's not going to be totally different because of me or even our church, but we can nudge it. We can make those kind of decisions. We have that opportunity. And that's one of the reasons God has us here, is to nudge the world. God so loved the world that he sent his son, and then when he had sent his son, he sent us. Okay? Now, if you don't have a relationship with Christ, this is what I'm talking about as far as serving God. It's not about making some decision for Christ and then sitting back and doing nothing until you die. It's about accepting Christ, making him the Lord and master of your life, and then going out and letting him use you to take advantage of those opportunities in your life. If that's something you're interested in talking about, how Jesus came to set you free from a life of collecting things that just rot and move you into a life of investing in God's kingdom on earth and in heaven. If you want to, just grab one of these blue bags. We have some over here. We have some in the back on the tables. And if during this next song you want to do that, you can grab one of those bags, and then we have some people lined up around the outside for prayer, for you to pray with. Just take it to one of them, and they'll be glad to unpack it. Take 7 to 10 minutes, talk to you about how to have a relationship with Christ. If you already have a relationship with Christ, the next step is to be baptized to announce to the world you're a follower of Christ. We do that on the first Wednesday of every month. That's coming up very soon, a week and a half. We have a potluck. Everybody brings some food, enough for a couple families. We also get to know a few people, have some food, have a baptism or 3, take communion together as the church family. It's a wonderful time. We also have our step classes. They'll kick back off in next week, right? We'll be on October by next week. So next Sunday at 6, I'll be teaching the Step 1 class over in the Steel Fortress. Takes roughly an hour, depending how wound up I get. I just tell you stories about the church, what we're about, why we do what we do. A little history and a little encouragement to be part of this community of helping advance God's work here. Could be, as we've talked, there's something you want to pray about for yourself or something else. There's a cross in that corner over there. And that's a place where you can pray. That's all it is. You just walk over there during this next song and pray about whatever you want to pray about. Nobody's going to bother you. If you want to pray with somebody or have somebody unpack a blue bag with you, that's what the people lined around the outside of the auditorium are there for. Totally confidential about whatever you want to pray about. You are a person whom God has given options. And those options are opportunities to do things that matter with the stuff he allows into your life. Don't reject that. Don't feel guilty about that. Embrace that and use it. Let me pray for us. Father, I thank you for what you have brought into my life. Father, I do ask you, forgive me for how often I just collect the stuff that's going to rot. But Lord, I thank you that you believe in me enough to entrust it to me. That you believe in me enough to say, I'm going to give him these things because sometimes he's going to make a good decision. Father, help me to make the good decisions, the self-sacrificial decisions. Help me to invest in eternity, to ask myself the right questions, to speak up for those who need spoken up for, to remember that my actions have consequences and my decisions have consequences. And Father, use me to nudge this community, this state, and this world toward you. It's in Jesus' name I pray. Amen.